Today I have a very special color theory for the basics of color. Stay tuned, we're going to go through color and all of its different aspects and what the misunderstandings of color, value, and all the color terms are. It's important you understand those because some of them are so important that it's the difference between a good painting and a bad painting when you can make other color mistakes that are not determinant of what is good and bad. It deals with three characteristics. It's hue, value, and intensity. And within those three characteristics, we have lots of terms that artists use, lots of terms that magazines use, lots of terms that tutorials use. Confuse beginning artists until you understand what a person might be referring to. For example, color often is a vague term. We use, as artists, the word, oh, I'm going to pick up this red color, I'm going to pick up this orange or this blue color, or here I've got this color. We're really, when we are talking about color, we are dropping off the word hue. Hue is the actual name of a color. So in this video, I will try to use the word color or the phrase color hue when I am referring specifically to, is it a red? Red comes in many different forms when you're talking about color theory. The brightness of color, or how bright a color is, that is a vague term that we use. Many times you'll hear artists talk about intensity, saturation, and chroma. Those are terms that are more specific than, oh, this color is a lot brighter red. This color hue is a brighter red, is more accurate, but we don't take time to say that. So I'll show you in the video the differences about brightness. Then we're going to talk about shading. Shading or shade and tints. The difference between shading, a lot of people think, oh, well, my tree is green, but it has different shades of green in it. And when they do tutorials, they'll say, oh, this is a darker shade of green, this is a lighter shade of green. Well, the word shading is misused because shade is the use of a black with a color hue. So if you have a red color hue in your pastel stick or tube of paint and you add black to it, you are actually creating shading. Now that doesn't mean that that's how you create shade to make darker leaves on a tree and lighter leaves. Tint is the use of white added to a color hue. And I'm going to show all this here in a minute with a demo. Tint is the addition of white, shading is the addition of black. A lot of times people will confuse contrast with shading and tinting. Shading and tinting do create contrast, but that's not the only way you can create contrast, and I'll demo that too. Tone. Tone is a gray added to a color hue. Now we can mix different values of gray, different color hues within the gray family. A natural gray is where it is just black and white added together to create various shades or values. I almost used the word shade incorrectly. The different values of gray from black to white with all the different gray values in between. And values. I'm going to demonstrate values, and I'm going to spend the most time on values because it is the most difficult to understand. Value is the relative darkness or lightness when a color hue is desaturated or turned into a gray. Like I said, it's one of the most difficult things, and I'm going to illustrate that using our cute little grayscales. And I'm going to teach you how to turn a color into a gray. And that way you don't confuse what visually, when it is a color hue and you're comparing it, you don't confuse the color hue to the brightness or saturation and chroma of that color hue to oh, this is a brighter value, it's closer to the white than this color of red, which is closer to black. So let's get to the demo. Let's start with some grays, and then I'm going to go to the values. Here I've used the neutral gray theory. We have a white and we have a black. I'm using pastel on UArt paper, sanded. We have a white and we have a black. So if we mix our black in proportions to the white, then we get a neutral gray from black to white. The grayscales you purchase are going to vary in the sense that they break it into usually 10 different values of gray from black to white, and they number black either number 1 or number 10, and they number white number 1 or number 10 and go from one to the other. This particular scale makes black a number 1 and white a number 10. So this would be our value of gray, neutral gray of number 1, and this would be our neutral gray, which is white, of number 10, with all the different values 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in between. Now, the difference between a neutral gray and a color hue that has been turned gray is that manufacturers will add whites, they'll add blacks, and they'll add complementary colors to create the tube that you have. But typically, because they are adding a color hue, the gray that they produce will be cool or white. And in this case, here is a yellow that has had probably some white pigment and some violets added to the yellow to create a yellow gray. This is a green gray. This is a red gray. This is a blue gray. And there's many, many different values of these different grays. So now, how do we turn, or how do we tell on this scale, how do we tell then on this scale what color, for example, this color here, where does it fall? Because this is a color hue, and it becomes difficult for beginners to tell where this belongs on this scale. And as we go through color theory, you'll find out that paintings that have a value of this particular color hue of red and violet, red-violet, mixed with other color hues that maybe are down here or over here, and this one is somewhere in between all these. My guess is it's somewhere in this gray value if we were to turn this to a gray. So how do you do that? How do you tell where this color goes on this line? Let me show you how. There's 3 methods. I'm going to go through the method that 2 methods that are mechanical, and then I will show you that once you get used to changing your color hues into gray values, you'll be able to control the painting much better as you progress with various color hues that you select to paint with. But we have to first learn how to change these into from a color hue to something that will fall into a grayscale. So the 3 methods. We're going to use 2 mechanical, and we're going to use 1 that is using our eyes, and artists use a squinting method. Now look at all these different colors. I have not separated these colors by color hue or by value. I have just mixed up, this is my traveling set of pastels, and I have just mixed up a bunch of my pastels, and I reach in and grab them because I know how to use the squinting method to turn them into a gray. But in the beginning, if you can't squint and see how these colors fit on this grayscale, if you can't squint and see that, then you will need to use mechanical methods. So one of the mechanical methods that I use is I have a camera, and I take this camera and I turn it so it's monotone. Now you see all the color is desaturated, turned to sets of gray values. And that's one way that you can separate by comparing a stick of color, in this case pastel. You can compare it to where it falls on this grayscale. And it doesn't help that this viewfinder is fuzzy. I can't focus on the viewfinder because it's too close. But you'll see how this particular color will fall on there, as will this color. This is a kind of a brightish yellow. And from this, using the camera, I can see that it falls somewhere in the 10 or 9 range. It's a little on the dirty side. But it's not so easy. It's not so easy to take a set of colors and determine just by looking at them what value they are falling in. For example, this, use terms people use. Well, this looks brighter than this, and this looks darker than this. But when I take the mechanical means, which is my camera, and I turn it to black and white, and it's fuzzy here, but that's fine because we are just looking at these colors in black and white to see their values. And you can see they are very similar, except for this orange is maybe a different value difference than the others. So you see, you cannot just look at a color without thinking about what does that color translate to in gray. The other method to use to translate is to use your cell phone. Turn it to photo. And the easiest way is to take a photo of the set of colors, go then to the photo you took, hit the edit button, and move it to mono. And you can see again that orange is a different value than all the other colors that are mixed in, yet our eye wants to tell us that those are very, very different sets of brightness, but they're not. There's only 2 values there. Okay, this is a little creepy, but I'm going to show you the squinting method. You can't just squint like this. You have to squint so far down that you're looking through your eyelashes and the skin on your different eyelids in order for the color to drop out. So eventually, once you start separating your color hues, you can start using the squinting method and hold up the grayscale to that. So let's stop being creepy here and get a little wider. So you have to squint down to the point where you're looking through nothing but your eyelashes, and the skin from your upper eyelids and lower eyelids are turning the image into a gray. Now there's another method also, and I don't have a sample of it. I used to have this. Sometimes you'll see people put these sunglasses on that have kind of a red color to them. They are dropping out the red. That's a useful way to drop out the color hue that our eyes and our mind is seeing to turn something to a value. It's kind of a reddish value, but it's a value still. It's a way to drop the color our minds see and turn it into something along that set of 1 to 10 on the gray value scale. Now the reason that value is so important and so important to learn is I'm going to take these colors, and remember this is the one that's just slightly, it's probably 1 value lighter or brighter than these other color hues that are here. So if we have something simple, simple shape like this, we are able to, if I make each side of this appear in a different color hue, if I make each side of this appear in a different color hue, it looks like the light is hitting this more than it's hitting this, and definitely less than this. But when we change that, remember, this orange is the only one that's lighter. So if I wanted to make the light hit the top of this and the light hit the side of this less, I can mix these values that are only 1 or 2 gray values apart, and this will stay unified. So that is one of the reasons that it is important to know how value affects the color. This particular color hue is the same value as that blue. And I can combine these and there's no jarring effect. If I combined the values of the color hues that are widely separated on the value scale, then these will start to vibrate more, and sometimes that vibration is objectionable. This is why learning to be able to separate your color hues into values will give you more successful paintings than if you just look at the colors and try to guess what values they are when you mix them together. So the only color here that is one value or brightness of value larger is this orange. And I could do many different things with this. I can cool my shadows down. An orange is a red and a yellow, and we have a warmer color hue than if we have a blue and a red-violet mixed together. We are able to create a cool shadow, yet the color contrast, because when you change it to grays, this is the only square that is going to really pop out as a contrast. But in reality, that particular color hue is only one gray value separated from this one. So the color hue unifies the piece together. We will get into more of this during the other tutorials on color theory, because this is just the basics. Okay, I'm going to address saturation or chroma or intensity. Okay, remember, when people talk about how bright a color is, it's one of the three characteristics, being hue, value, and intensity. In this case, intensity. So let's talk about the intensity of color, which is also sometimes called saturation, and chroma. Remember when I said let's desaturate by selecting on our camera or our phone the monotone? That is desaturating or taking the color out. So here we have three blues. One of them has a little bit of green in it, but you can see it's not near as bright as these others. So let's see what they look like here, stacked up on one another. So you can see that our different colors, our different color hues, stacked up on one another, we have a different set of brightness on this. Now, so many beginning artists will confuse how bright a color is, such as you're painting a tree where the light is hitting it and where the tree has a shadow, the intensity of that color with the values. The reality is this color here is actually just about a half a value or a value less than this. These are all, even though this one looks brighter than these two, the value is very, very similar. It's in the number 3 range on the value scale. It has this value here, and this one is just a little bit brighter or more saturated than what the one our eye, when we are looking at this blue here, this has a much brighter saturation to our eyes than this one. And this one appears like it would be the lighter one out of these 3 different shades of blue and blue-green. So you can see saturation can easily fool you, and it's more important to learn how to separate your colors by values and control your painting contrast that way. The narrower you can keep your values, not 1 from 10, but maybe 3, 4, 5, and 6, or maybe 8, 9, 10, and 11, the more control you'll have by selecting the brighter visual colors, although they're not a brighter gray value. And you can create a lot of different effects that way. I hope you've enjoyed today's video on a little bit of introduction, a little deeper into the weeds on color theory. But get yourself a color wheel, get yourself a color wheel that has a grayscale, or get a separate grayscale, and see what you can come up with as you start to learn the squinting method. First start with the mechanical methods from your phone or a camera to turn those color hues into gray values and learn to separate your painting tools so that you are not painting from 1 to 10 in value, but you're narrowing your set of values and changing the intensity of the colors within those values to create more interest and more uniform paintings. Hopefully you like these videos and you'll hit the like button so the algorithm will let other people pull it up when they're looking for color theory. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do so. The videos, I want to give you tutorials. I want to impart some information. I'm hoping I'm doing that. We got a little deep into the weeds, but color theory is one of the things that you really have to understand. And the more we address it in the different videos, the better you'll be, the faster you'll develop with your art career or hobby. So until next time, happy painting and be happy.